It's spinning. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've been wondering what in the world are the drones, in quotes, in the sky, and if they're nothing to worry about, and why has the White House been holding top secret meetings, then do we have the Battle for Disclosure show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Stephen Greer, founder of the Disclosure Project and the creator of numerous brilliant documentaries, including The Battle for Disclosure. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about the truth behind this cover-up, what the drones really are, and if we're being set up for a black flag event or if UFO contact is just around the corner. So welcome back to the show, Stephen. Are you ready to shine?
Yeah, we're ready to roll, baby.
All right. So I was just telling you off air, I'm down in West Palm Beach, Florida, and the last 3 nights in a row, I've seen these 3 things flying overhead. What in the world are they? What are these quote unquote drones?
Well, there are several phenomena happening all at once. A lot of the drones are actually, people are starting to look up and seeing things that were always there. All right, that's one thing. So it's an observational artifact, we'd say, or skew. But the ones that really are the drones, that there are these flurries of them, those have been released in anticipation of a team of people that I've been working with for about 20 months, coming forward from 6 different black sites in the United States that deal with UFOs and extraterrestrial craft, or NHI, non-human intelligence. And once it was decided they were going to come forward between now and the inauguration of the new president, then this whole drone event started. Now, why? Because it's causing a lot of consternation and confusion. It's also causing a lot of mixed signals and sort of a diversion, so that when they begin to come forward with their evidence and information, people are going to say, well, maybe it was just all drones. Now, what are the drones doing?
Yes.
I just had here with me they left an hour ago, a contractor who has been tasked with looking into this. And he's quite convinced some are ours. They're all man-made. None of them are alien or anything like that. But quite a few of them appear to be originating from China or Chinese assets for reasons that appear to be surveillance. And that is at least the conclusion these experts have reached. Now, he also is aware, because he's embedded with the organization and people coming forward.
That was so huge. Can you repeat that statement again and then continue?
What part of the statement from
Chinese?
When we went? Oh, yeah, that they know that quite a few of them are from the Chinese, but the Chinese activity is probably being coordinated with a transnational criminal organization that's been responsible for keeping all the UFO secrecy. So in other words, here's the mistake everyone makes here in Washington, where I am right now, and everyone listening. We all look at a map of the world, and we see a boundary between Canada and the United States, or China and Russia. The organization that's working at the level that we're talking, they don't care about that. And they have assets that are derived from many, many countries. It's like a United Nations of illegal covert programs.
Yeah.
Now, that goes back, we know, to the 1960s. And I can tell you a story about that in a little while. It's in our disclosure files at our archive. But as soon as this group decided they were going to set a date to come forward, and remember, I've been at two of the chief black sites out in the Western Desert in a helicopter with the main guy who's coming forward and defecting. He's been a special forces operator there since 1995 in those programs. And as soon as they decided to come forward, set the date, and this was the big surprise about a month ago that I learned, they're going to unmask themselves. So in other words, they're not going to just anonymously say, here's what we've seen. These are at the highest level of aerospace contracting and special forces, who are going to come out, rank, their name, rank, serial number, nothing held back in terms of their identity. So that's a game changer, because this is the most significant earth-shattering disclosure in human history, number one, when I tell you what they're going to be, what they've been doing there.
Yeah.
And then number two, in anticipation of that, these corrupt enterprises are trying to gaslight Congress and the president and the public and the media, and create also the specter. This is the other part of this, of something frightening in the skies coming. See, this has been the plan since 1953 at least, that Werner von Braun warned us about. The man who invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler, on his deathbed, told a member of my team, Carol Rosin, that the plan was to eventually launch an alien threat or something from the skies, that they could unite the world around some sort of authoritarian or militaristic totalitarian superstate. That is what they're doing. We're at the point, we're at the inflection point where that's all about to happen. And so they're trying to set up a lot of diversionary tactics, as well as things that are frightening people, because they manipulate people through fear and people not knowing. So you go up, I'm up here all the time up at Capitol Hill, and you're talking to members of the Senate Intelligence Committee or House or whoever, or the incoming administration, the people I'm dealing with the incoming administration. By the way, I'm totally nonpartisan. I have to deal with whoever gets elected president of the United States. The point I'm making is that none of them know what's going on, but there's a lot of confusion and fear about it. So, and then in that, you build in this distrust of government, because so far the United States government has not properly addressed it, because I think they don't want to on one level. On another level, they don't really understand it. Now, this is where you get into this whole craziness, that whatever you think competence or incompetence is in government, it's way worse. I mean, it's just way worse.
So are we being, so much we get to dive into, but this is almost an aside, but it's not. You mentioned all the way back to the 1950s. So I have to look at popular culture and wonder how much we've been primed and in a sense, forgive me, brainwashed before we were even born, for many of us, to be ready for this fear event, so that, I'm guessing, greater authoritarian rule and the name of look out, there are ETs coming to get us.
Yes, and that plan was developed in the late 40s, early 50s. In fact, if you go to our archive that we've just released in the last year, it's dpiarchive.com. It stands for Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive. And at dpiarchive.com, you're going to see a terabyte or more of data. But in there is a government document from 1953, where the director of the CIA writes about the psychological warfare value of the UFO subject. So it was determined about a year before we mastered gravity control or anti-gravity technologies, when they would start building our man-made UFOs. Most of the ones that are UFOs are man-made, by the way, by Northrop Grumman and Raytheon and Lockheed. Small percentage are extraterrestrial vehicles, or NHI, they're saying now, non-human intelligence. But that's the buzzword in Washington, is NHI now instead of ET. But the point I'm making is that plan was a 70-year plan to acculturate through Hollywood, the media, and particularly the UFO subculture and ufology and so-called ufologists that had been totally spoon-fed false information and a false narrative. And I would say 90+% of everything out there on this subject has been curated and embedded within pop culture by the CIA and others who are very, very good at what's called a PSYOP, psychological warfare operation. So this is all part of a long-term PSYOP. Abductions are human-made events, part of a PSYOP. Mutilations of cattle, all human. This drone imbroglio, all human. There are a number of events that really do look like an ET craft. But what people forget is that 70 years of reverse engineering extraterrestrial vehicles and $8 to $10 trillion in black budget funding over the years studying it, they've come out with devices and machines that are almost indistinguishable from an actual extraterrestrial one. So those can also be, you look at these drones, you'll also see some of these weird like almost living orbs and spheres that appear.
Yes.
Those are ours. Those are ours. Now, there's extraterrestrial phenomenon that may look that way too, but
Yep.
what they're doing is a copycat. And therefore they can deceive the public. Even very well-informed people on the subject can be deceived, because the other thing that people wildly underestimate, Michael,
Yes.
is the degree to which we have unpacked and figured out extremely advanced technologies and then put them into weapon systems or deceptive operations. And so my concern is that the whole planet, and never mind the White House I'm looking at right here, and the Washington and London and Ottawa and other capitals are sitting ducks because they don't have enough information. So what we're in a rush to do is I'm going around the world providing these briefing materials for people, world leaders right now.
So what do you think? And people in the chat are hopping up and down, and there are also people who I can tell are plants in the chat to plant disinformation. Mm-hmm. What do you believe is the big picture plan? How do you see it going? And is there even, I can't believe I'm going to say it, a timeline of what's coming next?
Well, again, the group that's defecting from these 6 black sites determine their own timeline. I mean, I've been working with them for 20 months. They told me a month or 2 ago that it would be between late December and the inauguration or early January. So it's imminent, because I mean, this is, New Year's Eve is right now. Yeah. So that is what they determined to do. Now, I have had people in the incoming administration that I won't name who, but people who are up for cabinet level positions say, why don't you get this delayed until after the inauguration? I said, no, they want to do it beforehand. So it's on the plate of the incoming president on his table right away. So that wasn't my call. That's the call of these groups that are affecting. I want to be clear about that. And I'm simply the liaison between that group and the current government and the incoming government. And I'm doing the same thing in London and other places, and Russia and other nation states that need to know. But I think that the real problem is what happens after that. So let's unpack that for a minute.
Thank you.
Once these disclosures happen, and because the provenance of these men that are coming forward is sterling, and what they're going to disclose will be shocking to the conscience. I can give you a preview in a moment.
Thank you.
It's utterly shocking, outrageous and shocking, like you've never heard. That the result of that is going to be a number of issues. One, what does the incoming administration do about it?
Yeah.
Now, having just spent a lot of time with a lot of the incoming people who are senior, I can tell you they know either nothing or they know false information, because they've had people like Luis Elizondo and others go in there and say, hey, they're a threat to the national security. And oh, by the way, all these objects you see, none of them are ours, so they have to be alien. Well, that's a total gaslighting. In fact, I won't say who, but I was in Palm Beach 3 weeks ago meeting with a very senior person. And the person had already been gaslit by this disinformation crowd and was convinced that everything that went bump in the night was alien. I said, oh no. And so I had 4 special forces guys there.
Wow. So
I had 3 Green Berets with me, and a Marine who has come forward, Michael Herrera, whose materials you probably have seen when he encountered that 300-foot diameter disc trafficking in children and people out of Indonesia in 2009. And he was there. And the person we were briefing, who will be a very senior cabinet level person there in Palm Beach, literally was physically shaken, because he didn't know that we had these things, because he had already looked into it and had been told, oh no, everything going on is alien. So now imagine someone at that level of government in the most powerful country in the world being completely not only no information, but an enormous amount of disinformation, false information. That's dangerous. So where I'm going with this is we have to do a crash course for our leaders and our people in your country, whether you're in Canada or wherever you're listening, about what the truth of this is. So the presidential briefing document that we have, which is the biggest one we've ever done, we're going to do a sanitized version of it where we redact certain sensitive things. And we're going to put that and publish that online soon, because everyone needs to get a copy of that to their members of Congress and senators or parliament or leaders, because it has everything in there. Now, what it doesn't have in there are these new disclosures, right? These new disclosures coming forward will be the most significant ones in the history of the subject. There's never been a team this senior who are current. And by the way, these are not old retirees. These are people currently operational. All right. They're SO special operators. So that's a very significant development. Now, if it's handled badly, so let's say this comes out and leaders around the world say, oh my God, there's an alien threat. We have to unite the world. And like the movie Independence Day, where Will Smith goes, let's kick alien butt, right? You know, the movie. I mean, it was right out of CIA scripting. But if that happens, it's the end of the world as we know it. It's a catastrophe. If they do it, now I've written and
what does that mean, end of the world as we know it? Forgive me, that's a huge bomb.
It means that we would go to sort of an interplanetary conflict and create such chaos in the world that they would be able to manipulate like they did after 9/11, but on a much grander scale. It would be a cosmic 9/11. And that's unfortunately, not having enough information on this is dangerous. This is my mantra. You cannot be a member of the Congress or the president or a general or admiral at the Pentagon. And by the way, most of those people don't know anything about this subject, frankly, nothing. You can't be those people with that responsibility and be flying blind in a fog. You're going to slam the whole world into a mountainside and crash it. So I think this is the big problem, is that not having enough knowledge, or in a way worse, partial knowledge with all this disinformation it's a total existential threat. So that's what we're trying to remedy. But I think the masses and all of us together, if receiving this information, can rise up. If it begins to spin sideways in that direction, we can say, oh, but wait a minute. And here's this archive, dpiarchive.com, that has all the proof of this. And here's all this testimony. And it's not, these are man-made events, staging and pretending to be alien. So I think that is something that knowledge is power, and the masses, we're supposed to be living in a democracy, should have a voice in that in writing to people. Now, if it goes the other way.
Yes, thank you.
Recently, we sent out to our email list. Of those of you not on it should get on our email list, because it's a newsletter. It has all this stuff in it every few days.
Yeah.
And you can go to drstephen.greer.com. But the letter was a sample speech for world leaders to give.
Yeah.
And here's how that should go. Here's what right looks like. It should be announced that we're not alone in the universe, that they're not hostile, that there has been an intensive project for 75 years or more to study these objects that we have downed that are extraterrestrial, reverse engineer them. And we've had some amazing breakthroughs, some of which have to remain classified right now. But the basic energy systems that would run the planet, fix the biosphere, eliminate poverty, those we're going to work to bring out. And the other programs that have not been overseen properly, we're in the process of getting them under control. Now, what's behind that? Now, this I'm summarizing about a few minute speech that I've drafted for folks. And that's gone to a number of leaders around the world already. Whether they take my advice or not, I don't know. I mean, it's like, as being a medical doctor, I've had patients come in with a heart attack and get up off the bed and say, I'm going to go home. And they drop dead in the parking lot. And we told them that's what would happen. And,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you give advice. I don't have any official position, right? I'm just a regular civilian. So, private. So then if it goes in that direction, it's a golden age of human civilization, of free energy, no
Yep.
pollution, no poverty. And in the recommendation and executive orders for the president and others is that we start an initiative like our Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind initiative to make peaceful contact, but officially from the government, where instead of shooting at these objects and downing them with directional energy weapons and electromagnetic pulse weapons, which I've seen, we're doing it in the context of one universe, one people, that we're all conscious beings, that we need to have a rapprochement and reach out to these civilizations in peace and move us into a whole new chapter where eventually, not right away, because we're not quite yet civilized, that we can become interplanetary ourselves. So that's the vision that's very beautiful. So it could be, and what I've said is that there's 1,000 ways for this to go sideways and go wrong.
Yeah.
There's basically one way it can go forward, where it's a hopeful event, where we create not world peace, but universal peace, that we bring all these technologies out, carefully evaluating their national security implications when it comes to some of the things that fly at, 1,000 times the speed of sound. You can't let every terrorist on the planet have that in their toolkit to deliver a dirty bomb to downtown Toronto. Yeah. But my point here is there are wonderful breakthroughs in science and technology and medicine that can be a peace dividend for all the trillions in secrecy that have gone on. So I think, this is where the battle for disclosure, we just released this documentary. It's been #1 on Amazon, called Battle for Disclosure.
Yeah.
And it was timely that it came out. I mean, it's been trying to get it out for over a year, but there've been some problems with distribution. But that documentary is very important that people network it to their friends and everything, because it lays all this out. And it lays out how stark the choice is between a dystopian future of endless war and expanding war into space versus a whole new world, a new civilization that is beautiful. And this is our choice. And our leaders need to hear from us, right? Because this is going to break, and then people are going to be going, well, now what? And I have always said, if the people will lead, the leaders will follow. And I hear this from members of the Senate and Congress all the time. They say, we want to hear from our constituents about this. So people need to actually take some action.
Thank you. So I want to double back. First off, you mentioned the URL of the archive, because people here are screaming, we need proof, we need to see proof, we need to see proof. So A, where can people go for the archive? And then B, would you mind sharing some of what's going to be disclosed? You said, as much as we can handle, we'll fasten our seatbelts for a minute.
Yeah, it's dpiarchive.com. And we are crowdfunding that, by the way. And we've spent about $500,000 putting that together, because we had to digitize my archive. But it has 115 named whistleblowers, video, and their transcript testimony. It has 122 events of these objects, ET objects, crashing and being retrieved, and research with named witnesses and illustrations, forensic illustrations. It has photos, has videos. It has government documents from U.S., Canada, former Soviet Union, French. All of that's in there, and it's all for free. You have to register, because otherwise we'd have bots destroy the system. But it's a free, you don't have to pay anything. So it's all there. It's 34 years of research and material. It would take you a year or two to get through it, but you can search it. It's a searchable database. So it's been put into a database. So that's available to anyone who wants to take the time to look at it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So then now, would you mind sharing, you said that we would get to some of the stories of what are going to be released or what people have seen or, heaven forbid, done? Because I know people are thinking earthquakes,
Mhm.
weather phenomenon, all sorts of crazy stuff.
Well, these covert programs have the ability to do all of that. I mean, they certainly have the ability to. In fact, this one guy called the NOC, and it stands for non-official cover. So I don't want to say what his cover is yet. I mean, he'll unmask himself in the next week or two. But when I first met him,
Yeah.
it was through an encrypted handoff from one of his security officers, special forces guys out of JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, and went to some bar not far from the CIA,
Yeah.
and he handed me a thumb drive, and I took it, and he was scared shitless when he met me. I don't know why they're all so afraid of me, but then I went and had to get someone who could help me even open it,
Yeah.
and basically it was a 10-page explanation of this issue and this man's involvement. So he is a senior operator for an aerospace corporation and intelligence community operative at two major black sites out west. I won't say which ones.
And what's
I've
a
been
black
to,
site for people? A black site, black ops, shadow government.
yeah,
I'm not sure people are familiar with these terms.
they're highly classified secret bases. Most of the activity is in a subterranean facility. Some people call them DUMBs, deep underground military bases. And you will see in the archive some photos of us above one of them. We were out at the Lockheed Skunk Works out in the desert, high desert, and I was in a chopper and videotaped and photographed the underground opening where the man-made objects, the
Yeah.
man-made UFOs come up and then are tested. And you'll also see what that test range looks like. Now we're releasing all that. Now this man has been operational there,
Yeah.
meaning that he's been there when they have used illegal electromagnetic pulse weapon systems. Those are banned by the International Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, but
Yeah.
they're used. And some are as small as a bread box. I mean, they're not big.
Wow.
And you can take down an airliner or ET craft or anything. So he's been operational. And in fact, one of the sites I was at, he says we knocked down one or two ET craft per year at that one site, and another one or two at the other one where I was. That's about 100 and maybe 100 miles away north. And we were in his chopper, so we were in a classified, thing. But and I had with me the director of a Green Beret group that's been pulled into law enforcement, civilian, to get these under control. That's another discussion we should have. What do you do after all this comes out? We got to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Now, so what he has dealt with there are all kinds of issues. For example, when they are going to operate an electromagnetic pulse weapon and strike one of these non-human craft, to get them to come in, they have trained people to be kind of biomachines, where they have gone to very impoverished, poor areas around the world, and they've said, you can come with us if you don't want to die here, like after a natural disaster or war or something. And certain people are screened for their psionic, their ability to be telepathic or intuitive.
Okay.
The ones who pass a certain screening process are then put into what's called a P3 program. And it's what I've talked about for years, where the interstellar vehicles have their guidance systems and their communication systems are hooked into the consciousness field and thought, but scientifically. It's not just woo-woo seances or something. Or just normal remote viewing and telepathy. It's high-tech interface between mind and thought and machine.
And that's how they travel. You were telling me interstellar travel takes place from thought.
Communication.
Okay.
Guidance systems and communication. The physical travel of a machine is different but related, but we can talk about that. Okay. I'm now talking about, guidance systems. So let's say if you wanted to hijack an Airbus, right? And you had a way of breaking into their guidance system and autopilot, and you would then be able to hijack it. Now visualize that being done by these P3 operators who are taken into a program. They're put on a lot of drugs. Most of them end up dying or end up in a coma permanently. But the ones that survive, these poor innocent people, those become these operators who can then latch onto an interstellar vehicle, an NHI, and basically, if they sneak in, grab it and pull it over this site and then kill it, hit it. Now, so it's like using the concepts of CE5 in a high-tech way, but for a murderous purpose. Also, some of the objects are not destroyed. They've come down intact. And there are a number of ETs that are captured that they euphemistically call refugees that are in these underground facilities that we want to have liberate them and save them. They're still living, some of them. So imagine this happens 1 or 2 times a year at this one site I was at, and 1 or 2 times a year at the other site. So this man has been operational. I mean, to the point where he has ferried deceased, they call them biologicals, deceased bodies, not human, ET bodies. And he feels terrible about it. Now, the other part of it that's horrible and shocking, in order to operate those systems, they have to put up what's called a TFR. And it's a total temporary flight restriction.
Yep.
So in other words, they notify FAA, there's a flight restriction goes up over a zone around these sites, and the aircraft are told to go around. Or if you're a private Cessna pilot or Learjet pilot, you're told to go around. However, this is what's really terrible. Sometimes people ignore or don't see the TFR and they fly in there. If they fly in there and this team is operational, they kill them. They knock their aircraft down. All the humans are killed. They're incinerated, turned into powder, and there's no trace of them. And that has happened too many times. Worse, occasionally, the beam from the electromagnetic pulse goes wider and goes outside the TFR, and people who are even trying to obey the TFR. So there are a number of cases of missing aircraft that vanished because they were hit by these weapon systems. So there are a lot of problems we have to fix. It's going to take an executive order from the president. I've drafted those. Those are in the briefing materials, or recommended what they need to be. So the folks coming forward are not trivial. They're not incidental. Many of them have been there for many, many years. The one gentleman, 29 years, since 1995, read into this. Now he's senior enough to have all this knowledge. Now, what isn't known is how much of the actual physical, like the videos of the bodies that are ET, or the videos of the man-made or ET craft, or photos or data that he'll be able to release, because he doesn't want to get him and his family killed, and he doesn't want to have someone trump up some charges and have him arrested. So that is an unknown to me, and it's an unknown to everyone else. So that's pending. So, and I'm leaving that totally to his discretion. I know what he has.
Yeah.
Because when these events happened, 100% of it's filmed, photographed, radar, sensors, infrared, it's all there, right? Now, how much of that will be dumped into our hands that we build a blockchain protected site to put it, and you will all be notified of this. I do not know. And I don't know how much of this story he's going to tell initially, because some of it does shock the conscience. And so much of it sounds like Star Trek or something, but it's all real. And that's what I've known this for 30 some years. And now it looks like it's going to come to a head if they can pull it off in the next couple weeks.
Thank you. So a whole bunch of questions related to protection here. And then I want to dive back probably to Star Trek in many different areas. First off, forgive me. How are you still alive? How are these people still alive? And what will be done to protect them if they come forward? Does it even matter if they put X amount of data out or Y amount? If they come forward, it would sound to me like they're sitting ducks.
It's high risk. I mean, when he first approached me about 20 months ago, his big concern was for he and his family, and his children that are young, fairly young, not babies, but young, and younger than my children. And that's one concern. The other concern is that he doesn't want to release this, and it's the tree that fell in the woods nobody heard. In other words, he wants it to be known by billions of people. So I've set up a system where I'm asking people, when we announce this coming out, it's going to be open sourced. It'll be on a blockchain site. It'll be downloadable, all of the testimony, everything he's releasing. And I want everyone to send it to everyone they know, every celebrity I know. I put them on high alert to receive this, and we will create a link. We'll create a little, like a little sizzle reel of it, and a link, and it'll then hook right into this blockchain, because you can't put it in the cloud. I mean, I think Amazon cloud would be, it'd be ripped out of the cloud if we put it there. So I built all that in the last couple of months for the team to come forward. But we're going to need help from all of you, like you, Michael, with your show and following, to get the word out.
You got it. So, okay. And then I want to double back to how you're still around, and I love you. I'm so glad you're still here. But you brought up a very interesting point. If I'm putting all these pieces together, because people are going, what are the drones? What are the drones? What are the drones? And it's a reasonable question. But the bigger question is, are part of the reason that the drones are here, not just to base fear, but to make us blasé, so that whatever comes forward, it's totally for lack of a proper word.
Yeah, part of it is that. Part of it's fear, and part of it is to create confusion, because people are going to go, well, maybe everything these guys were working on were some version of a drone. In other words, what this group likes to do is confuse, take a clear picture and muddy the waters.
Yeah.
And the media, the mainstream media, by the way, which is in the back pocket of the corporate and corrupt interests running all these secret projects. They don't know it. The average reporter doesn't. But I can tell you, in every major media situation I can think of, when people have tried to hand off the truth about this, the networks, all of them, your networks, my networks in the United States, Fox, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, they all kill it, all the way back decades. So the idea that we have a free press on this is a joke. We don't. It's a corrupted media. It's a corporate corrupt media. So the way around that is through podcasts and through celebrities dropping the link. So, there are some people in my network who have, 100 to 300 million followers, right? So if that type of celebrity drops this link and it goes viral, who needs CNN or Fox or PBS or the Canadian Broadcasting Company, right? So that is something I built for this gentleman and his team, because they didn't want to risk their lives, and it ends up being something no one hears about, and we can't trust the mainstream media. Now, maybe they'll cover it, but even when they cover it, I have never been part of an event dealing with this subject where when it breaks into the mainstream media, it's not distorted or lied about or debunked, or you can't trust them. This building that has 300 condos in it, I have more ability to hurl this over the Washington Monument than to trust anyone in the media. I hate to sound that way, but I simply don't trust the big media.
Well, it's
trust you.
So, thank you.
I trust Demi Lovato to get the word out. I was just with her out in Sedona a couple of months ago.
It's interesting. So I've been seeing these drones here. So you go online, you clickety, clackety, clickety, you go at USA Today or anything. The top 10 things you should know about the drone sightings in Florida, for instance. And it starts out, it sucks you in at the beginning, and it seems like it's going to be telling you about the drone sightings. And then it starts to compare things to airplanes. And then it starts to talk about FAA rules. And before it's done, it's wrapped up neatly in a nice tight package. And you forget what you're reading the article about. It is brilliantly engineered
They're
to
good at what they
deceive
do.
without any clue.
Yes, yeah, they're very good at the psyops, psychological warfare, and these sort of PR spins. They've had many decades to practice it.
Yeah.
It's propaganda. Most people fall for it.
Yeah.
But with what these guys are going to disclose, this is not going to be ambiguous. So, and we also know that if it were to go through a government entity, it would just get buried.
Yeah.
I just concluded a meeting with a contractor for the U.S. government who had gotten a contract to look into the UAP issue.
Yeah.
Millions and millions of dollars spent from Aero, this office at the Pentagon. And he got all these images. He got sensors. He turned them over, and they wouldn't do anything with it. And they didn't disclose it to the members of Congress. And the current Dr. Kirkpatrick was there when he handed it over. The new director of Aero, which is that office at the Pentagon, that's been ordered to investigate this, the new people there can't even find it. It's all vanished. Wow. So this cover-up just happened in the last year. So anyone who thinks that any government entity can be trusted with this is why we're doing it privately. Because I just, unfortunately, I don't see that happening. And also people who are members of Congress, some of them sincerely want to know the truth. Others are on the payroll of these big corporations to keep it secret. So, it's got to be that this battle for disclosure is a really big battle.
Okay, thank you. Two key areas I want to go on. I want to go and follow this $8 to $10 trillion. Before I do that, the questions coming up in the chat are why? Well, the question that came to me is, why are all these ETs still coming here if so many are being shot down? And the corollary to that is people are asking, if they have such advanced technology, meaning the extraterrestrials, how are we able to shoot them down?
They have very advanced technology, but they're not infallible. Only God's infallible. And people are way underestimating what we have. All right. Now, the kill rate, I hate to use that term, isn't very high. I mean, they're attempting it more than they succeed, obviously. So it's not like it's every minute it happens. But it's happening enough that it's very worrisome. I mean, we have 122 documented crash retrieval downings in our archive that I mentioned, but there have been probably 1,000 or two or more. I mean, these two black sites I was at have been around for 40 or 50 years, 1 or 2 ET craft a year. You can go do the math. And there are sites like that all over the world, out in Australia, in Asia, over the oceans, in space, other places in the United States, the Northern Nevada Test Range, north of Nellis and Area 51. There's an operation there. We have a whistleblower who was there when we knocked down a craft that kind of did a soft land and then took off again. But, I think this is, it's a real problem. And what's important to understand is that the oversight committees in the United States Senate and House and the White House don't know any of this is going on. People say that cannot be. I said, oh, yeah, it is. Now, like I said, there are a few people in the Congress who then lie to all their colleagues and say, oh, no, there's nothing here. There's nothing behind the curtain, right? It's like the Wizard of Oz. And they're liars, and they're treasonous liars. But, and this is at the point where we have to begin to hold them accountable. And I have recommended criminal prosecution of the former director of Aero for lying to Congress and covering up the evidence he received. I'm just put that on the table. I've already recommended that to the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee, as well as to an FBI team.
Thank you. Why do you think the ETs keep coming forward? And forgive me, some of the comments that are here are saying, well, if Dr. Stephen Greer thinks that all ETs are friendly, there must be something wrong with what Dr. Stephen Greer is saying.
Well, that's a non sequitur. If they were hostile, we would be dead. I mean, think about what we have been doing. We began using early primitive scalar electromagnetic weapons in the 40s. That's what Roswell was, downing these. So if they were overtly hostile, we would have been kicked back and kicked back hard, and that hasn't happened. So I tell people, that question was asked to me when I was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base,
Yeah.
meeting with the head of the division where all the early ET materials were sent in the 40s and 50s, and the Colonel Canola, and asked me, he says, well, what if they're hostile? I said, then you and I wouldn't be having this conversation, because of the galactically stupid things we've been doing for 70 years. So that's one point. The other is that they keep coming here because they know that our planet, humanity, has great potential, but the whole enterprise, the whole human endeavor, our civilization has taken a bad left turn into the ditch, not only for the environment collapsing, but geophysical problems, but the specter of ongoing nuclear war and the proliferation of nuclear weapons all over the world. Why are they concerned about that? Because when you detonate an atomic bomb or a thermonuclear weapon, it sends out not only an electromagnetic pulse, but embedded in it is a type of signal that's called scalar that goes faster than the speed of light, and it disrupts transdimensionally through other dimensions interstellar communications and transportation or travel. So that is why when we started detonating atomic bombs in the 40s, in 1945 at White Sands, the ETs responded in large number because they knew that this civilization was in trouble. Now, I think they've been observing us for thousands of years. I don't think it's anything new. But I think when a civilization goes from, in 100 years, from, muskets and rifles and maybe clubs and swords to thermonuclear weapons, right, in 100 years, from 1845 to 1945, if you're an advanced civilization observing the evolution of life on this planet, and at the same time, they're collapsing the biosphere to the point that thousands of species of plants and animals are becoming extinct. So this is all being watched by these civilizations. And I think they have a very good reason to be concerned, not only their interest philanthropically, let's say, or altruistically of Earth and humanity, but also their own protection. So here's another problem.
Yes.
And I talked about this about a year and a half ago for the first time. Our technology transfer, our reverse engineering of ET technologies has advanced to such a point that we've almost reached parity, equal with what ETs are capable of, which means that with the consciousness of violence and militarism, we can turn those technologies and target distant places in space so that humans become an existential threat to other worlds. See, humans are so self-absorbed and narcissistic that they're always looking at this only through our eyes. But let's look at this through the eyes of a ET civilization. You have a rampaging, unevolved group of primates known as Homo sapiens, people, with a kit now, not only thermonuclear weapons, but technologies that they reverse engineered from the ETs, and the largesse and patience of the ETs has a limit. The limit is using those against innocent places in space and putting weapons out in space and traveling on aircraft or spacecraft with weapons. That is a red line, and we're very close to going over it. Now, at that point, if we don't fix it, they'll have to, because there are innocent worlds out there that don't even have a concept for war. I've said this for years. And so humans have to begin to look at themselves through the eyes of not just each other, but of intelligent life out there. What would we look like? This behavior is so sociopathic and insane that it isn't rational. And so endless wars, look what's going on in the Middle East, Ukraine, Russia, it never ends. And so at a certain point, these civilizations have a prevailing concern not only for this beautiful planet and the good that is human, the goodness of humanity, but they're very aware of the evil that we can do and the warlike and destructive. But now we're not banging around in an airplane or a rocket. Forget Elon Musk's, SpaceX. We have our own spacecraft that are electrogravitic and can do all manner of technological advances. But we've done this with a military us versus them mindset instead of a consciousness of we're all intelligent, sentient, conscious life, right?
Yeah.
So I've had people who are in those programs say the big mistake was militarizing that relationship in the 40s and 50s. And it's never been corrected. We need to correct that.
Thank you. So, okay. 8 to 10 $8 to $10 trillion. I've seen the documents, I've seen the archive. We've actually posted some of that on the show. Where are they getting their funds from? And what can't you do? If you've shot down one craft and you have 8 to $10 trillion, what can't you do?
Well, what they can do almost anything. This is, I call them the masters of the universe, and they view themselves as having so much power and money. And it's not just from black budget funding. You know, the United States, for example, when we fund the B-2 stealth bomber,
Yeah.
we may be charged $2 billion a plane or something like that. It actually doesn't cost anywhere near that. Maybe it's 150 million. The rest of it goes into the back door, and it goes into these projects. So this is why you all saw on the news last week or week before the audit. The Pentagon just failed its 8th audit. It's audit. So no one knows where the money is going. Now we do. We know where it is. I told some of the incoming administration people, I said, Ramaswamy and Elon Musk need to, here's $200-300 billion being embezzled. And it's not just from the Department of Defense and CIA. It's from many agencies. So that's one source of funding. Another source of funding is, I hate to say it, spin-offs. So let's say you've reverse engineered certain materials, sciences, or digital technologies, and you spin them off into a corporation that brings out things like fiber optics or the way you and I are talking right now.
Yeah.
Those technologies were spin-offs of studying extraterrestrial materials and systems. And so they make their way into the public, and that creates a huge profit center in these trillion-dollar companies, part of which goes back to these clandestine organizations. And then there's another one that's a little more, that's not as obvious as embezzling black budget money. And then another one that's a little more disturbing is the billions that are made in human trafficking and drug trade. So this organization has an aspect of it that is highly involved in moving vast quantities of drugs around and people. So there's another lucrative cash-only business that this corrupt enterprise has. So now this is highly compartmented. Someone working on a widget with Northrop Grumman doesn't know anything about the other. But what I've been able to do by debriefing over 700-800 of these kind of whistleblowers over the years is to put that puzzle together. And so if you go through my archive carefully, you're going to see that picture becomes quite clear. So that's where the money, so it's almost an unlimited amount. Now there's another creative way to get money, and that is through the banking system. And I had a member of this group explain to me in 1993 that they're able to grab the odd amounts of transactions that are between different currencies, say between a Canadian dollar and a US dollar, or a euro and a US dollar, that's less than a penny, right? And those get dropped into a black fund. But you're talking trillions of dollars every day. So a tiny, tiny percentage of trillions of dollars daily, every day of the year, amounts to a lot. And this guy was a very genius digital guy embedded in the supercomputers that back up the banking system. So there's a lot of little creative tricks like that we've learned about from people who have come forward and explained it to us.
Thank you. So many directions. I want to go with this more. I mean, there's part of me that wants to understand, well, if you have $8 to $10 trillion and a group of people come forward, aren't they gone? And then there's the other part, which is, what about Elon Musk, SpaceX, NASA? What's going on? Why isn't there an understanding there of any of this that's going on?
Well, part of it is willful blindness, and part of it is that when they in their highfalutin way, assign some academics to look into this. They don't know even where to begin to look. So I actually met a man. He was here at my condo, where I am right now, earlier this year, who had been on the NASA UAP or UFO investigation committee. And he didn't even know where to look. They closed the report and said, well, there's nothing here. I said, well, this is ridiculous. Here. So I gave him a hard drive of data. But that is typical of government bureaucracy and academia. Their laziness is surpassed only by their incompetence. So, sorry to tell you, I guess in my old age, I've become less and less enamored of it all. But and that is what happens. The other part of it is that it's so compartmented that it wouldn't matter if Elon or SpaceX knew about this. They wouldn't be allowed to apply it, right? In other words, the best that they would be able to do, even if they know about it, is an old-fashioned rocket from the 1940s, right? Because, they're fancier now and they have better computer systems, but it's basically a Roman candle going up with people on board when there are humans. And so it's a ridiculous system, but that's the best SpaceX has or any other contractor has. And I will say, if you look at these large corporations, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, huge overwhelming percentage of people working that are working on conventional things, right? And the ones that are in these other projects are actually very patriotic, good people at the operational level, not at the management level, who got stuck in that system. Let me give you an example.
Thank you.
The knock who's coming forward, he has a special operator who, when I go to Southern California, will pick me up and will drive me around in an armored thing. And last year, when we were having the premiere in LA for The Lost Century, the movie about all these lost technologies, when he dropped me off where I was staying, this gentleman said, thank you for what you're doing for those of us stuck on the other side. And it was very tearful. And because these are people who they were young, they were good people. They got pulled into a compartmented operation. And it's only years later, 20 years later, they rise up high enough to realize they're in a complete illegal criminal enterprise. So now they didn't have the advantage I had as a young doctor briefing the director of the CIA in 1993, December 93, it's 31 years ago, where I realized that this covert group dealing with UFOs was decapitated, and there was basically a silent coup d'etat in the United States that happened back in the late 1950s, because it was on Eisenhower's watch that this whole thing went sideways. And he died a very bitter man about this, by the way, because he had been betrayed by people he thought he could trust, like Paul Mellon and Alan Dulles and others.
Well, it begets the question, timing. We've got one administration going out. We've got another administration coming in. The new administration, very different, shall we say, than the old administration. This isn't about administrations, but is there the potential, because they're so different, to be able to move things forward more, which is why a black flag operation, ladies and gentlemen, may need to take place before then. Is that what you're thinking or seeing?
That's why they've launched all this this false flag operations with drones, because the incoming president and his people do not have enough information on this. But we have delivered the briefing materials. But everyone's so busy trying to get confirmed by the Senate, if you're a cabinet level. I have to say, I've been frantic in the last few months, going to Europe and London and here and everywhere, trying to explain, look, I'm sort of like a cosmic Paul Revere. Here's what's coming. This information is going to come out, and the way you respond to it can determine the future of humanity. Not being melodramatic. So now it could be they'll muck it up and it'll get back on track. So there's no way to predict how people are going to react to all that. I've gamed it out like a war game in multiple dimensions. But I've concluded that there are 1,000 ways it can go bad. and there's probably only one way it'll go correctly. And that's
Can
the risk of it. That's the big risk.
I have a show that deals with energy, that deals with spirituality, it deals with your original origin. Yes, doc, but you're also meditation teacher. How
Yes.
much can we affect things as an inside job so
Hmm.
that we affect and have the
Hmm.
effect of that one
Hmm.
positive possibility coming true?
Hmm. Yes, I mean it's like Luke Skywalker hitting that right
Thank
place
you.
on the Death Star just before it blows the planet up. That's my analogy. I always joke we're collectively that. But yeah, so prayer and meditation and higher consciousness is what everyone needs to be connected to know what right action is, what the correct action is.
Yep.
And so I try to stay in that state. Everyone on my team are meditators and able to remote view and also anticipate things. And we ask people for their prayers and protection because last year, I don't know if you know, I was almost killed.
Yes, I do.
It was
You're,
terrible.
you're talking about the accident that happened with you. Accident in
Yeah,
quotes.
yeah, accident. Yeah. It was about 14 months ago. And, if it had gone another way, I would have been killed. And I know that one of the investigators deployed from Senate Armed Services and Intelligence Committee that was going out in the field, trying to look into this, was also murdered
Oh,
last year.
shit.
Yes. Oh no, this is serious stuff. So we know we're in mortal danger, right? So that's part of it too. You want to call on heaven and earth. Now we have our own OPSECs, operational security, but ultimately, uh, one of the reasons why I've been withholding so much material is it's my dead man trigger. So if something happens to
Right.
me, it gets released, and boy, it would be a page turner. So the archive and there's certain information and materials I have that wouldn't come out unless I'm dead. And
Yeah.
I made that very clear in the '90s because I was told, you need to get enough information that and don't play all your cards at once because you need to be able to have some materials that this organization, this criminal uh, organization, would be more worried about coming out
Mm-hmm.
than you still living. So the best way they've done me is to defame me and to put out false information about me. A week or two ago, I was told that it's being put out that I'm a Russian spy. How I'm a Russian spy? I've never been to Russia. That I'm, some kind of criminal. I've been called a felon and a traitor. I mean, it's endless defamation. So,
Yeah.
you have to get battle hardened that they're going to throw every false thing at you. And that's just the way it is. But there are also these physical dangers, which I've made my peace with. I mean, if I die, then I have plans in place. But plus, I mean, I started this effort when I was 34. Now I'm 69, so I've lived with that threat for a very, very long time. Right. And and these men who are coming forward, they're Delta Force, Green Beret type guys. These are no strangers to danger and risk. And they're also big boys. They know how to protect themselves, right?
Yeah.
So, but it still doesn't mean it's not dangerous. It is dangerous. And one of the things that I've been recommending is that you need the equivalent of a witness protection program that doesn't exist. It was gutted. I mean, these bills that have come out of Congress, there are some people in the Congress who have been gutting the key provisions and taking them out. And we know who they are. And I have named them to
Yeah.
law enforcement. So, but ultimately, it's people willing to take the risk at this first stage of it. Now, here's what I think needs to happen after these guys come forward.
Thank you.
We need an executive order immediately standing down the weapon systems targeting
Thank you.
these ET craft, right? But to enforce that,
Yeah.
you're going to have an enforcement arm. Now,
Mm.
I'm working with a group of people who all of them were Green Beret Special Forces. They've separated from the military and they're prepared to operate under a U.S. law enforcement entity I can't name. But that's going to have to get funded. That's probably going to cost at least $500 million or $1 billion. And I've met with the 7 top commanders who would be involved, the senior guys. And I'm their source of information of Where do you go? Where is the corporation secret area? Where is the underground base opening? The other thing in our archive at dpiarchive.com, you'll see a map with, I think it's 150 sites where UFO projects have been. And some of them actually have the points where the underground opening is. It's there. Go look at it. You know, people go, really? I said, yeah, I'm putting all this out now the last few months. It's all going to come out. Now, to fix that problem, because remember, if you're an unconstitutional group that's powerful, you're just going to thumb your nose at the president. So you're going to have to be able to enforce that. Now, to enforce it, here's another complication. Everything that the legal, let's call it Team Blue, the legal government and military have, would be the equivalent of going up against an Apache helicopter with a spear. Because this other group have weapons and technologies based on reverse engineering, interstellar capable systems that are thousands of years in the future. So even with the full force and weight of the legal government of the United States or Canada or anywhere else, they're going to be the David against this Goliath. So the other strategy that we're doing, and people listening to this, listen very carefully. If you or someone you know is involved with any of those operations, if legal law enforcement approaches, you are to defy the orders of your superiors and not fire on them. If they are there officially under the aegis and authority of the government, that is the legal constitutional government of we the people. And I have been saying this now for about a year, preparatory to this team being stood up, because here's what I think how it can happen. It can be a bloodless, peaceful transition where more people like this gentleman, the Knock and his team coming forward, that becomes a flood. And the people who are the really bad actors, those are the suits. Those are the power people. But the order for them to enforce their sociopathic policies, they have to have the grunts who actually pull the trigger or fire the electromagnetic pulse weapon. So if we can message this to the people who actually they have to act through, because you're not going to get Dick Cheney out of his house in Wyoming and he is part of this. So how are you going to fix this? Well, you need to communicate with the people who actually do it. So what I'm doing, I'm going on military podcasts that have a military audience, and I'm saying what I just said. You stand down. You need to stand down. So that's how it is. Something like the Orange Revolution, in Europe, where when the Soviet Union fell, there were all those Eastern European countries that had a peaceful transfer without any bloodshed. That's my goal. That's my vision. But to do that, we have to communicate all of this properly to the boots on the ground. Because if you're a 25-year-old guy and you're doing the OPSEC, operational security at one of these black sites, you're just taking orders from up there, right? You don't know that up there on that project is an illegal, unauthorized, unsanctioned program. That's what we have to communicate. And then most people of conscience, because they are patriotic people, they're just good people stuck in a bad system constructed by a bunch of fascists. So, frankly. And so in order for these guys to have their awakening and then allow these systems to be stood down, they're going to have to not follow the orders from the sociopaths who are running those covert programs. They have to defy, it's against everything in their training, but they're going to need to defy their senior operative. It's like, think about all the SS and the people in Germany, if they had all defied Adolf Hitler, right? All right, we wouldn't have had a Holocaust. So I think that this is where it gets into more of the idea of the consciousness, but also communicating this properly to the right people. And it's not it's not the UFO and New Age crowd, it's the military. So this is why I'm spending a lot of time with military organizations on military podcasts, because those guys follow what I'm doing. And then if they're educated about this, when they see the legal constitutional government authorities come in, they're not going to just kill them, right? They're going to lay down their weapons. And that's what we're recommending. We're looking for a peaceful,
Yeah.
nonviolent transfer, and just let's close the chapter on this in the past and start a new era.
So when I speak to you, I tend to hold a prayer stone, and I'm going, "I'm send love. I send love. I
Mm-hmm.
send love."
Oh yeah,
And it
because I'm
sounds to
scary.
so well, you do have some good protection, and I'm happy for
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But for
we do.
people who are here for the first time, you're going, well, that sounds so woo woo. That sounds so this.
Mm.
What we're talking about here is shifting consciousness at the highest level, guys.
Right.
This may be the cliff where either humanity goes off the cliff because we followed these fear-loving people, or we go to a place of love, and if not love, at least amnesty for, to shift consciousness of the
Right.
world so that we can welcome in. You're coming forward. Oh my God, I love you. I don't care what you did. I love you. Let's get
Yep.
you into the light, get this program into the light, and then bring
Right.
humanity to a golden
Right.
era.
And that's our plan, is that it should be based on let's close that chapter and forgiveness. And in fact, almost exactly a year ago, the National Defense Authorization Act had in it a provision that I had helped advise to do. It was passed unanimously out of the Senate Intelligence Committee that would have given amnesty to anyone coming forward, even if they had done terrible things in the past.
Yes.
But it would have been a 6-month window. They would have had to come through it. That provision, when it went to the House of Representatives, was gutted out by some operatives. Like Mike Rogers and Mike Turner, and Mike Turner was the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, and Mike Rogers chair of the House Armed Services, and they and a few other people gutted all that out. It passed unanimously out of Senate Intelligence and overwhelmingly out of the Senate, but it all got taken out. And that's when we knew that getting this resolved in the Congress isn't going to happen, because there are people there, because of the way our system works, who can take out any of those protections and provisions. So then it leaves you with what's called the unitary, the chief executive, which in the United States is the president of the United States. And so that's going to fall squarely on that whoever is in office when this happens. And of course, it'll cross between Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump, because it's going to happen, as I understand, between now and inauguration. So that's why we've been going at 20 hours a day at this.
Thank you.
It's intense.
To say the least. I mean, and it's something that you've talked about it on this show for, I think, almost half a decade that you've been on the show. You've talked about this for almost 30 years. What do people do today? So we're hearing this, and we can go to that place of fear. They'd love us because it's so easy to have authoritarian rule and a place of fear. How do we go someplace else? What do we do? What's the action that we take based on this? And then after that, guys, I want to talk about, people are asking about abduction and other things, but what's the action that we take?
Well, the action you take, first of all, you have to be informed. So that's why you need to go in and study this material. What's the saying in the Vedas? Knowledge is the greatest purifier. So if you have knowledge, it will purify and clarify your action and how you're thinking on it. So that's number one. Everyone needs to get properly educated on this. And then secondly, you do need to engage in, prayer and meditation, that the world and humanity is guided forward across this chasm. We have 100 years of lost evolution due to this outrageous secrecy, and that we come out on the other side, as a peaceful, global, and interplanetary society that's prosperous and using a whole new group of technologies that don't destroy the planet but heal it. So that's what people need to see. But then they have to take action. So as this comes out, I'd ask everyone to follow what we're doing. And like I said, what comes out from this group is going to be on a site, blockchain protected, but you can download it and pass it to anyone through social media anywhere in the world. No restrictions. So, and the way, that's how you become a sort of a force for good, by getting the truth out, even as the cover-up artists and the liars are moving forward. This is why it's a battle for disclosure. So you have to be on the army of light instead of the people who are liars and whatnot. So that's what everyone can do. Anyone with a computer or smartphone can do that. And the other thing, which I think is very important, is that we know the CE5 contact. We have an app called
Thank you.
CE5 Contact. And that app trains you in becoming an ambassador from humans to these extraterrestrial people. And it's using not only consciousness and remote viewing, but other techniques, and it works. And everyone can do that. I mean, it's an app available at whether you have an iPhone or a regular, and it is an entire training program, actually, if you do it. And then you can gather with other people and go out and do contact within the context of universal peace instead of endless war. So that conscious field, we talk about that 1% effect or Maharishi effect. When a lot of people begin to do that, it changes the hearts and minds of people who don't even know you're doing it. It has this field effect in consciousness or morphogenic propagation, that 1% effect that really alters everyone else. And so that's something everybody listening can do. It's not only fun and it's beautiful to do it, but it's also results in some amazing contact experiences, which if you look at our movie, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, you'll see how we unpack that in about an hour and a half or so. And it shows, the kinds of experiences people have. But it's not just you seeing and experiencing something, it's this larger effect in universal consciousness and non-local mind, the quantum entangled aspect of our awareness, that it will shift the whole world. So we need to be doing that also. So that's something everyone can do. I mean, anyone.
Thank you. So, and that's the game that I play. That's our School of Mystics. That's everything we do. We're automatic writing, going with the other side. I want to address abduction. I know we got less than 10 minutes left. I used to watch a TV show in the 70s, this like Air Force show where they went out and swamp gas. It's this, it's that.
Right.
What is abduction, and what are these things that are taking place? Because so many people are saying, well, they can't all be good because this happened and that happened and the other thing happened.
Sure. That's called stagecraft, and it's a psychological warfare or psyop campaign that began in the late 50s and early 60s. Now, go back to the fact that we mastered gravity control in 1954.
Yeah.
All right, October 1954. We have that date from sources in the system who have seen the documentation. So we're now 70 years into an era where they could simulate an alien craft and then engage in actions. They realized, this is the psychological warfare part of this, that in order for this to come out and benefit the military-industrial warmonger complex, it needs to come out within the context of creating a new enemy. Well,
yes.
You need to, if you're going to bring the whole world together against an enemy, you need an external one out in space. So they came up with this harebrained idea and began to stage abductions and mutilations. Now, how do we know this? Because we have Air Force intelligence people on videotape saying that, yes, we've been doing that. We have a document that Jacques Vallée is admitted to having. Dr. Jacques Vallée has a document. He won't release it, but I think the FBI will be able to get it from him when they stand up this program. I'm telling them where to go and who to get things from. But it's a CIA document from 1985. And you know what it says? He summarized it in his Jacques Vallée's book in 1992, and this is in our archive, that the CIA was conducting abductions, alien abductions, in Argentina and Brazil against, quote, peasants for its psychological warfare value using these advanced technologies. Now, everyone who would see it would say it was alien. They'd all be deceived. Same thing with the cattle mutilations. So whatever technology you think this covert group has, it's worse. And their ability to stage things to sort of propagandize this good versus bad aliens. And that's what they want. They wanted cowboys and Indians in space. They want conflict. And in order to have conflict, you have to have an enemy. Or to have an enemy, you have to create that enemy if it's not legitimately there. So that's how you end up in World War III, my friend. So people drinking that Kool-Aid is the real danger here.
Okay, so one more, and then we're gonna leave it on some positives here. Um, oh my God,
I know.
Antarctica, weapon system down there. Have we been traveling across the galaxy, scaring the crap out of the other civilizations as well with the technology we now have?
We're not physically traveling, but we can project weapon systems and systems out there at beyond the speed of light. And Antarctica isn't where you should be concerned. It's the South Pole. There's a Raytheon. We disclosed this last year, about a mile under the ice, neutrino light system that can be activated as a weapon system. It's both monitoring and a weapon system. And when they first switched that on, is when they had all those huge earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand, by the way.
Wow.
And so those systems are really worrisome. And again, Raytheon is one of the big operators of these covert programs. They're also in possession of ET craft, and they have built the most convincing simulated ET craft that are human. And
Wow.
they're almost indistinguishable from an ET one, up to and including being almost living and making living sounds like a living organism. I mean, really weird stuff. So, which, by the way, the really advanced extraterrestrial craft are both conscious, have a living component, and are a machine. But
Wow.
it's a spacecraft. And I've known this for a long time.
That's
So
cool.
imagine reverse engineering aspects of that and having the stagecraft to hoax alien events. And this is where knowledge is power. Because if people know that, they won't be, it's like the Who saying, we won't be fooled again. Well, they were talking about the Vietnam War. Hello,
Yeah.
50 years later, we've been fooled over and over and over. The
Yeah.
big one they want to trick us with is this, and hoax, is this threat from outer space. And if they were a threat, even some of the people in the House of Representatives have said publicly that if these were a threat, I think one congressman said we'd be a charcoal briquette floating through space, burned up because of what we've been doing. So I don't really see, but everyone. Here's the other problem with the human nature on this:
Yeah.
everybody wants to have someone to hate. Everyone. We're people who love to have someone to dump on, who's lower than we are. We're better, they're less. Whether it's religion,
Mm.
sex, sexual orientation, ethnicity, identity politics here and there. Everyone wants to have someone where they're superior, right? And the exploitation of that has resulted in racism and religious wars and on and on and on and on. Now, this same organization knows how to exploit that by portraying the ETs in a certain racist way and caricatures and staging events. And they're playing on the primate brain of chimpanzees, of which we are 98% identical, that do organize into troops and kill each other in wars. So that part of human nature, the only way to overcome that is in higher consciousness and seeing that all life is one and all conscious living beings, the light of awareness in your eyes and my eyes is a singularity, it's one. And so I think that's the only way to do this and not have it be an enterprise that goes sideways. So there is a deeply spiritual component of this that needs to get addressed. And I think, we're prepared to do that
Thank
as
you.
people begin to ponder these big issues.
So as we look up to the stars and we see
Mhm.
drones, in
Yes.
quotes, any clue what they are that's making drones, and what do we do in that moment to get centered, to keep from going to a fear-based place?
We'll just know that they're all man-made and they're just part of a clown car show trying to deceive people. I just brush it off and go, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
First of all, we anticipated it. We said it was going to happen. And then on top of it, it started happening just as this group of people were ready to defect out into the public with all the truth about this. So I think people have to be, stay calm and not get all hysterical about these drones and whatnot. Now, it doesn't mean that they couldn't start hitting some other triggers, right?
Right.
Okay. I mean, there are nuclear triggers to hit. There's earth change triggers to hit. Who knows?
Earth
As
change
this
triggers?
begins to come out, how this organization that's a bunch
Yeah.
of psychopaths will react, or how quickly uh, any given administration could get stood up to get them on a leash or stand them down. This is the danger of the moment, right? Is how does this play out? And so much of that is going to be dependent on people having enough knowledge to not be deceived, but also taking right action on behalf of humanity to fix the problem. And the good news is that we know how to do that. The bad news is that the people who are going to be in charge don't know 1% of what they need to. So we have a lot of work to do.
Thank you. So one more time,
Yep.
where can people go to find your work, to find Battle for Disclosure? We're going to have some links down below as well to find the archive, all of it. Where can people go?
Yeah, Battle for Disclosure. I mean, it's been a limited release at this point. It's on Amazon and Apple TV, and maybe a couple other sites. Our archive is dpiarchive.com, and you can get in there and see all this evidence and information. And my website is drstephengreer.com. So you can sign up for free to get our newsletter and briefings and stuff. And then also you can go to your app stores and get the CE5 Contact app. And I say if everyone were to become an ambassador to the universe, the consciousness shift would guide this whole disclosure project in the right direction, where we're actually have the governments of the world coming together in peace, making peaceful contact with these other civilizations. That's what we should have done in the 40s, but so let's do it now.
Thank you. And is there anything at this point that's giving you hope for what may be coming next?
Yes, I mean, the great hope is working with these people who are taking enormous risks, who are actually very spiritual men, even though they're battle-hardened special forces guys, and taking risks to their life and their freedom to do something. That's where I have the most hope. And then secondarily, the average person doing the right thing and supporting this effort, but also engaging in the CE5 contact. We have so many people doing it, having amazing experiences. And I think that people underestimate how powerful a single individual is and how each of us, but when we join together, it becomes this amazing positive force for change. So that's where the hope is.
Woo-hoo.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and you as well. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, check out everything Dr. Stephen Greer has to offer, and then step forward in your own way out of love, but do take action, and above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And so as I wrap things up, I want to let people know a few things that we have to offer. We have a School of Mystics where we can help you shift your consciousness to that higher level, to that higher plane. It's something so many people in the chat will tell you about. We do 4 weeks each month to come together, raise consciousness, shift the energy inside of you to help you live at that higher plane. You'll find that link for the School of Mystics down below. We actually, if you're seeing this before the beginning of January or even in the beginning of January, we'll give you a free month to try it out. How does it get any better than this? To help shift your consciousness. I also have another program where you can write on a daily basis, and you can literally write to the other side of the veil and write to extraterrestrials, write to whomever or whatever you wish to contact. That's called automatic writing. I wrote the bestseller on it. You'll find the link for that down below. It's automaticwriting.com. Lastly, if you just want to shift your energy each and every day, I've got a free newsletter to bring your energy up, 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 and way up. Notice, I didn't keep this in the dark. I brought it out of fear to a place of love, to a level of higher consciousness. That's every challenge that we're facing can be played with and dealt with at that higher level, taking us from a three-dimensional, physical, fear-based chimpanzee time creature. And I love you guys, chimpanzees. Not meaning the people watching this, but I literally was watching chimpanzees yesterday, and take you to that higher dimensional energetic being that you are, were, and were always meant to be. You can get that newsletter at dailywoohoo.com. Again, that is daily, WOOHOO.com. I love you so much. I'll keep you posted. Keep your eyes peeled to the sky. Take action out of love. And let's all bring in that new golden age of humanity together. Woohoo! Woo! And thank you, Aya Bear, Ann Bear, Bobbic Bear, our entire dream team who's helped get us through this, because you guys are amazing. But wow, has that chat been on fire tonight. So sending much, much love your way, and keep on shining bright.
Every day there's a new horizon. Birds keep on singing, earth keeps on spinning. Time to toss any fears that rule you. Dance to vibrations, no limitations.